Call the meeting to order. We will start tonight with the flag salute, and we'll have Board Member Dudek lead us in the salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Sorry, I'm a little behind here. Use your mic. Board Member Dudek would like to say something.
Before we get going, I'd like to just have a 30-second moment of silence for the people in Ukraine, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. It is wonderful to see so many familiar faces tonight. We do have quite a bit going on, and we're going to start with our agenda review. Are there any items that need to be added or pulled at this time? No? All right, moving on to our special presentations. We will start with our superintendent report.
Yeah, well, good evening, everybody. It's so nice to see so many people here as our mayor's walking in. Hello, Mayor Bryant. Thank you all for being here. I noted coming in, and I hope I didn't miss anybody, but I saw some former board members. So let's see, I saw Larry Hilburn. Where'd Larry go? Larry's back there. Hi, Larry, thanks for being here. Dr. Paul Cray is back there by him. Hello, Dr. Cray. Isaac Montanez is right there. Sitting next to him is Councilman Johnny Rodriguez and former board member. And then I saw Carlos Sanabria. Where did Carlos? There's Carlos back there. Hi, Carlos. Did I miss anybody?
Isaac.
I got it. Yeah. All right. I think I got everybody and lots of other of my favorite people out here. So thank you so much for being here. One of the things that I start off with every meeting is I try to highlight some of the things that have been going on in the district since the last time we were at a meeting. And so I just want to show you some of the great things that are taking place in our district. So March 10th, we've been doing Bandapalooza. So this was at Heritage High School, and where both Adams and Bristow schools, I think they were the best bands there. Nobody from Liberty's here, but I think they did a great job. Out at Marsh Creek Elementary, the after-school program they're growing, these are some green onions that they were growing and harvesting. So I wanted to show that and thank Miss Pam for her work putting that in. This is Mrs. Renner's second graders at Cray Elementary. This was a fun project where they're building their animal habitats. They have research projects that they do on specific animals, and they're required to build habitats for each of them. So a fun project that's taking place. This is Mrs. Jenkins, our computer science teacher out at Edna Hill. These students had to create mini golf courses, and then she taught them to integrate circuits and use coding to have movement and lights and sound. And actually, if you're around, board members, especially for you, on Friday at Edna Hill, they're going to be letting people try them out and play them. So it's a fun activity to go do. So great. One of the traditions that we have is the Walk Through American Revolution that's continued on for a long time. These are our fifth graders out at Ron Nunn that are getting this experience. And the students have to do a great deal of work for this. They have to memorize what their character would say, and then they interact with the characters throughout the walk-through history. So great program. More music news. This is the Adams Jazz Band. Mr. Fallon is our wonderful director out there, and they were out at the CMEA Jazz Festival out at El Cerrito High School on March 12th and earned a superior rating. So congratulations to them. And then also this is Mr. Morello and the Bristow Jazz Band, who was also out there, and they also earned a superior rating. So our music programs are doing fantastic. I want to say a special thank you to the Brentwood Elementary Parents Club. They did this wonderful treat for St. Patrick's Day for the Brentwood Elementary staff. And as you know, it's been a challenging year for many of our school site staffs, and these types of recognitions really mean a great deal to them. So really wanted to thank that Parents Club for doing that. March 14th was Pi Day. I made the mistake of walking into Mrs. Bartling's class a couple days before, and the kids challenged me how many numbers in, it goes 3.14 and then it goes on and on and on, and how they do a challenge every year to try to get as many as they can and memorize them. You'll be proud to know that I got to 3.14. But there were kids that were doing better. So anyway, but they have a whole day dedicated to that. And then they of course get to eat pie. So that's a really positive thing. We have a new program throughout the district with our fifth graders where they're doing ukuleles. And so they were learning to fret on the ukulele. So I'm sure Mr. Getty, as he's talking later, will discuss the importance of fretting and how that works. We're also getting back to some more normal activities. So you can see here, this is a Loma Vista fifth grade band concert that took place where they're showcasing the things they've learned in their first year in band. This is Esteban. Esteban is a fourth grader at Mary Casey Black, and what you're seeing him doing is holding a book signing party for his first book, which is Cop Biff. And so he had staff and friends and classmates come out to get this. So see if you can catch that on Amazon. This is Miss Moreno's class out at Marsh Creek Elementary. Her fourth graders were using our mystery science program to learn about energy transfers using these bumper coasters. So love seeing those interactive activities. And then Marsh Creek also had their third grade team put on their annual Miwok Day, where they learned about the Miwok days of living out in this area. I love this picture of you can see the boy on the left of the screen who is very excited about his leprechaun trap. So these kindergartners out in Miss Panu's class were really excited out there. So great job to them. I hope they caught some. Under all that silly string is Principal Guy Rolfs. Mr. Rolfs, I saw you here. Can you stand up so they can see what you really look like? Okay. More importantly, Brentwood Elementary for many, many years has been working to raise money for the American Heart Association and been one of their biggest supporters all over the state. And so this year they raised $8,500, and what they earned was a chance to silly string Mr. Rolfs. What I like about this picture more than anything is you see all the kids standing around him as he's being silly string, and then you notice all the adults standing very far back. So they learned. One of the things that's taking place actually there is art up there now that you can see at the community center. There's been some construction, but our art show kicks off tomorrow. There's an art awards night at 6 p.m. But the art's going to be up there for over a month, and you can really see on both levels, the city is wonderful about letting us showcase our student artists. And so you can see that up there and some really fantastic work that's there. This is a gold mining day that fourth graders at Cray have as a tradition. And so this is them in the Dry Gulch Saloon with some sarsaparilla snack and Gold Rush pretzels, I'm assuming. For those of you that are in the audience, if you don't recognize the logo up there, we have a new school. It's the Harvest Grove Virtual Academy. I'm not going to restart to update. And so this is, we have about 250 students that are enrolled in this virtual academy throughout the district. And this is one of our teachers, Mrs. McNamara, who's celebrating an English learner student who was just reclassified. So nice opportunity for them. We also, there was an article that came out in the press this past Friday, Thursday or Friday. We had 7 Brentwood teams that placed at state level and earned a trip to the World Finals in Iowa for Odyssey of the Mind. So that's the most we've ever had. That's a wonderful achievement and more than any school around. And so you can see there were 3 teams from Edna Hill, 1 team from Mary Casey Black, 1 team from Bristow, 1 team from Adams, and you'll see one that says BUSD alumni, and that's because Liberty hasn't had a team, but we've allowed some high school students to compete under our flag, but they compete in the high school division. So I really want to congratulate those teams. In May, they'll be going to Iowa, and it's a wonderful opportunity for them to do and experience to have. This is the Bristow Tobacco Use Program Education Club. We call it TUPE. And so on April 6th, they did some work to discourage kids from ever messing with tobacco. We had our AXA Awards dinner last week on April 7th, and 3 Brentwood administrators were recognized there. So we have our elementary coordinator of curriculum and instruction, Liz Ibarra, there on the left, Casey McClure, our principal at Pioneer Elementary, and our amazing director of technology, Robert Renlemy, who's in the room. And I'd like to give Robert a round of applause and just thank him for everything he does, and acknowledge how lucky we are to have Liz and Casey and Robert as well in our district. We also had 3 amazing young women who were honored by the Seroptimist on April 7th. From Adams, Uma Valdez, from Edna Hill, Olivia Orsay, and from Bristow, Caroline Jin. And so there was a special dinner in their honor that took place, and they were recognized with students all over the Delta region. So I want to thank both the Seroptimists and congratulate those young women on that accomplishment. Again, this is a nice thing in looking at getting back to normal. So this is Guerin Elementary and Street Smarts working with students on staying safe on bikes and skateboards and scooters and as a pedestrian, and reminding them to wear a helmet, and our partnership with them continues. This is Mrs. Barry's class. They're 3rd graders. They were growing kale and enjoyed a smoothie with the kale. And that student looks pretty excited about it. They're supposed to be making salsa this week. They asked if they could bring them by for the board meeting, but we're going to have cake instead. But there might be kale in it. This is the Brentwood Police Department is celebrating autism awareness, and they came out to some of our school sites. This is a shot from Bristow where they have their car covered in the symbols of autism, those puzzle pieces that are there, and let some students go up and see that real close. So we appreciate our continued partnership with the Brentwood Police Department. This is the stage at Edna Hill Middle School. And so the Willy Wonka play has been in production for 2 years. Many of these students have been practicing, and so they finally got to perform it. So, of course, I think some of those kids have moved on to college and had kids by now, but many of the kids are still there and were able to come back. And I want to just thank Lisa Seamers and Bart Schneider for all their work in putting that together. And they are having showings this weekend if you'd like to go. So be taking place. And then finally, I think I showed you a slide last time. Maybe it was the week before or the month before, about Mrs. Conrad's class, and they were raising rainbow trout at the very smallest, and this was their release. So they went out to Contra Loma on April 9th and actually released those trout. So wonderful project for them. And then also, I wanted to let people know that this Saturday, there's a brand new event in Brentwood that's taking place. It's Miles from Mayo. And it's a 9 a.m. 5K with proceeds going to local school running programs, Liberty High School. And I understand that you have almost 500 runners so far the first time, Stephanie. Is there anything you want to share about it? Or are you guys taking people if they come up on that day? Okay, so registration's that day at Veterans Park if you'd like to come. It's a walk or a run. And that is my report for this evening.
Just to let everybody know, Stephanie is a stepmother of
Yeah. This is in honor of Stephanie's son.
One other question, the Odyssey of the Mines, is, congratulations to all them, but is Superintendent Volta paying for his kids to go to Idaho?
You know what? I think he is. I think he is.
That's
So
appropriate.
they actually do, the teams do a lot of fundraising. So while there is some district fundraising that takes place, or some district funds that go place, it's actually the team's responsibility to try to do a lot of the fundraising for it. So it's a
Their
challenge.
budget is much larger.
It is, yes.
Very good. Thank you for your report, Superintendent Eaton. And would you like to take the next item as well?
I would. Well, I think I'm suspecting there's either something I didn't know about, or there's a lot of people that are here to celebrate something that this board did a couple of months ago. And so one of the things that we're very proud of is the commitment to the arts that takes place in this district. And it's so wonderful to have so many people that have been connected and part of the district for so long that are here today, because that commitment had started with really what's a high school level theater at Edna Hill Middle School. It's a beautiful facility. If you've been in it, you know that it's a wonderful place to showcase the commitment to the arts that we have in the school district. As part of Measure B that was passed by the voters about 6 years ago, we have converted the Adams Theater and upgraded the Adams Theater, so there's seating in that theater. That was something that they were not able to complete at that time just because of cost, and so it's a fantastic new facility there, and we've expanded that. And if you've been by Bristow at all, you've seen a brand new theater going up. One of the things that the board did in recognizing just an outstanding member of our community and somebody who's been a constant advocate for the arts and education is they decided to name that theater after Emil J. Geddes. And did you want to share that? Okay.
Just, I'd like to just say a few words. I've been on the board 7.5 years. When I came on, I really didn't have a clue what I was doing, and Emil took me under his wing, and I call him Papa, not just because of the huge age difference, but he totally taught probably all of us sitting here as far as the ins and outs and history and all kinds of things. So he's just a wonderful person, and obviously by everybody that's here, it's incredible. I don't think I have this many friends anywhere. And I do appreciate everybody wanting to stick around until 10 o'clock, the end of the meeting. So I totally appreciate it too. But he's just, this speaks for itself. He's just a wonderful individual, and it couldn't be more honored to have him as my friend. And every time you guys drive by and stuff, you'll be able to see your Papa up on the wall. So you guys should be, I know you're proud, but you got a great man there. So
yeah,
that's it for me. Enough is enough.
I'd echo what Scott said. While he calls him Papa, I still call him Mr. Geddes because he was my fourth grade teacher. I've known him most of my life, and I know he knew my parents before he knew me. So he has been a tremendous mentor on this board for most of us, and some of us are newer, but it's an honor for us to get to do something like this for somebody who's meant so much to this district and to this community, and couldn't think of a better person. So very, very happy for Emil.
I'm going to show a couple of slides, and then I've asked one or two people to say something, and then we'll open it up if anybody else would like to say something real quick. If you haven't, this is the artist rendering of the theater, so you can see it there in the parking lot. And this is from a little farther away, so you can see this is going to be a significant facility. How many seats did we decide on, Robin? Okay, so there's enough to hold everybody here, so under 300, and it'll also have adjacent classrooms that are there too. And then this is if you're over right there in front of Bristow, to the right side there's that parking lot that's to the right of the gym. And so there's an extension of the parking lot that'll be out there, and then the theater will go out there as well. And some of this is going to go on to what was previous grass out there, as you can see that. And then this is a design so you can see the theater as it goes. So this seating here is fixed, that's in the middle. And then this seating here, which is cool about the design, is retractable. So, but it's not like your gym retractable. They're actually full theater seats. They really are nice. And they go into the wall, and it'll create another space that's there if we need to use it as we go forward. You can see the classrooms to the left. And then this is, you can see the construction that's taking place. And this is even a little bit outdated because I think this is probably about 5 days old. So you can see that, and you can see it from above coming in. And the nice thing now that we've named it after Emil is if you're in the area and there's noise complaints, so probably all of you have Emil's number, so feel free to reach out because it's going to be his theater at this point. And then you can see inside of the stage itself and starting to take place and what that is looking like going forward. And this little bit from the outside, I just wanted to give you that little overview of what's taking place. I asked former Superintendent Doug Adams if he would just say a couple of things about Emil. You can.
Rule number one, Dana knows as a superintendent, never have your board behind you sitting. And here they are, right here. So that makes me a little bit nervous. The Geddes family has lived in Far East County for more than several generations. And for that entire period of time, that family has been very supportive of fine arts, performing arts, and the music. They understand the importance that plays in our schools. And I see them sitting here tonight, and they too deserve a round of applause. The Geddes family, can you stand? Come on. Emil embodies that legacy. He was an outstanding teacher in our schools, as Steve has mentioned. And at Etna Hill School, he taught with my mom for many, many years. A number of you right your hand. Yeah, you remember that. Together there, they were colleagues. They did a number of activities together. They were very active on the social calendar for the school. And they thoroughly enjoyed it. My mom was very fond of Emil. She told me one time that he was a natural born teacher. And that is the highest compliment my mom can give. She said he had the ability to reach out to those students that were hard to reach. He understood that teaching music just wasn't about learning how to play an instrument. It was about learning about yourself, about others, and how to contribute in a group setting. She also said, and I am sure, Emil, right now, she and Dad are up there. They got that grin on that face, don't they? And Mom is standing there and she's saying how proud she is right now. And she would always do this finger to Emil and say, Emil, he is so special. And she meant it as a compliment. And I'll tell you, as a board member, you were also very special to me, Emil. And I'm going to give you just a couple of quick answers or a couple quick examples of that. When I arrived back in Brentwood in 1991, it was a great district. Emil had just been named to the board. You took Shirley's place, right? Shirley Nunn? Yeah, on that board. One of the first board members that came in, actually they double teamed me, Emil and Paul Cray, came into my office and said, we talked a little bit about the district as you would with the brand new superintendent. And then they both said, and especially from Emil, we are here to make sure you succeed as superintendent, Doug. Whatever you need, we will help you with. And that continued. And when you take people like Larry and Ike and Paul and anybody else that's here, the board members, you realize that what we had going in the 1990s was very, very special. But we had two problems, huge problems. The first is we lost our funding base in the state of California. We used to be relied on property taxes. That was no more. The funding became very secular, and depending on the politics in Sacramento, how much the schools got each year. That required us to cut 25% of our budget back in 1994. In a K-8 district, you don't have 25% to cut in a budget, but we had to. The board sat around that table and said, what are we going to do? Let's talk about some of the things that we're going to cut. On that list were things to reduce like extracurricular activities and sports, all the things that you saw today, music, fine arts, performing arts. None of them wanted to do it. So they said, what should we do? And the board said, we'll do as we always have done. We'll go out in that community and sell it and make it work. Emil was articulate in those deliberations, stressing the need to reach and teach to the all around of a student. to provide students who maybe were struggling in school with opportunities to be successful in music and performing arts and on the athletic field. The board divided up the work. And Emil had such connections with the city council and others on the planning commission that we went tootling down there, didn't we? And we talked to them about the idea of a joint use gymnasium with Craig Bronson, John Elam, and those kind of people that were there at that time. We talked to them too about the importance in this community of performing arts and people such as Nancy Torres, who's sitting here today. We talked to those people about how can we get that into the schools. We were not going to be content with the idea of just having regular classrooms. The children of Brentwood needed first-class facilities. We needed to bring back those programs that we had cut. And then we had a huge problem on the horizon. Up to 5,000 new homes were going to be approved in the city of Brentwood. Within 3 years, we were the fastest growing school district in the state of California. How do we keep from going to double sessions? How do we bring back programs? How do we upgrade our existing schools? And how do we build new schools? It was done because the community believed these board members. When they went out in that community and they said, our children deserve this. In that first election, we had 84% approval in this community. We ended up going back now 4 times, right? I did 3 and you've already done 1 or 2, maybe, I can't remember, maybe 5, just 1.
Just one. The other 3 are if you see them on your property tax. That's from Dr. Adams.
My first one just retired. It's been that long, you know? But we decided that we would do that because it was important to the overall of the children. And I got to tell you, Emil, you know that. I have 3 grandchildren in this community. And our oldest one is going to hit Bristow next year. And I know that when I'm going to sit there, I'm going to have a big grin on my face, not only because I'm watching my granddaughter up there on that stage, but because I remember what you and the rest of the board did that set the tenor and the direction and the vision for all the other boards that have come in the past and helped people like Carlos and others and Ike, who came on the board later, to be able to continue to offer and provide those programs. I'm going to be smiling too, because I'm going to say, Emil, he truly is special. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Was there anybody else that wanted to say something quickly? I know you'll have your opportunity. Ms. Pierce? You are very welcome to go right over there.
I wasn't planning on speaking, but I got inspired. Emil, what year did you start teaching at Edna Hill? In 1968, I was an 8th grader at Edna Hill Elementary School when Mrs. Hill was still teaching. And in those days, all the elementary schools had bands and they participated in all the homecoming parades and anything else they could get us in. And I'd have to say that most of the teachers teaching at music had been there a long time and had really old ideas. And Emil came in, I became a majorette. I still have a baton in my car. Well, the chief of police told me I couldn't have a bat, so I have a baton. And Emil brought all these new innovative things, and we had the best time. We had majorettes, we had flag girls. I think even the cheerleaders were even marching in the parades. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. We held up things a lot because we didn't do the old practices of turning the corner. He had us do new things out on the football field and different places. Thank you, Emil. We had a really good time.
One of the stipulations for us to name the theater after Emil and put this on your calendar whenever it opens up, Emil has agreed to do a solo be the first solo singer at the theater while he plays piano or another instrument. So that's something to look forward to. Just
Yeah. Councilman Rodriguez? Yeah. And just be careful if you park next to Lil Pierce's car out there that you don't ding the door on the way out.
I also didn't come to prepare to speak or anything, but I really felt there was an opportunity to thank Emo Geddes for the great opportunity to be able to sit at this board. I had the great opportunity to run for the school board. I was a student in the school district. I mean, everybody know who Mr. Geddes is. Even when I was on the board, I still call him Mr. Geddes. Just raise that way a level of respect. But I'll be honest, I told Geddes one time, I said, I always wondered, man, why is this old man still on the board? Like, right? I go, man, he's been on here for years. What can he bring that's unique and different to the young people of Brentwood? And I'll be honest, it was a huge eye opener to see how grounded he still is and how important he still sees all students and all of people here in Brentwood, especially our young people. So for me, it was a great learning opportunity. I think like Mr. Dudek said, I'll be honest, I was nervous. I was scared to be up there. I didn't know what to expect. He made it very welcoming, but at the same time, very humble and learning. And every time I called, and I still do at times at the city council level, he answers my calls and we go to have talks, and he's always mentoring / guiding me into making the right decisions, not just for myself and not for specific groups, but for the whole community, really thinking about the whole community. I'll be honest with you, some of the best times I had with Mr. Geddes was going to some of the conferences, having good times. I won't share no jokes, Mr. Geddes. I know I have a good one right now. I saw him smile like, Johnny, don't do it. I won't. But I'll be honest, it was also, one of the things, and I think a lot of people don't understand, when you sit up there, your family sits up there. The sacrifice that our wives and our kids and our relatives have in sending these type of positions, the impact that makes. And I also want to thank Mr. Geddes for being very welcoming to my wife. I'm blessed to have a beautiful wife, and he's always been very kind to my family and my wife, which made it a lot more easier to be able to sit in those positions and make the decisions that we need to make. And sometimes they're very difficult decisions, but once again, I just want to thank you, Mr. Geddes, for everything that you did for me in regards to my journey, in regards to sitting here on the board, but also those things that you show me that I'm able to do now at the council level. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez.
He doesn't know this one's coming. I'm one of Emil's many children, and especially if you come from his teaching background, I'm sure all of you are children as well. But this one's going to be a little different. And of course, if you know Emil like the rest of us do, if I were to stand here and tell a story, I'd get so caught into it, we'd all be here until the next meeting. And boy, do I have the stories to do so. But what I want to talk about with this new with this new theater and your dedication is the importance of its location. For those of you who don't know, when Emil started in '67 with his teaching career, that was afforded to him by Bill Bristow, who at that time was superintendent of the district, if I remember the story correctly. And that started a very, very long history of a professional, and just, I can't even describe the friendship and brotherhood that they started from there. And I can't think of a more appropriate place if somebody like Emil is to be dedicated, for him to now be physically immortalized next to his dearest brother and friend. So thank you for this opportunity for him, for what it means to him professionally, for what it means to what he's done to the community, and for the symbology that is going to stand for the many, many years to come. I am very happy to see it.
We apologize for the alarm that's going off in the background. I think Margaret Sedweeks is probably the one person that's not fazed by this, because as a secretary, this is what happens in a school office sometimes, is there's an alarm that goes off for an hour and a half for no reason. And so we are working on it.
I thought we were on Wheel of Fortune for a minute.
So Emil, I know I know we have cake that we want to celebrate with all of these people. Was there anything that you would like to say?
Well, I wrote a thing. Maybe I'll stand up there.
Okay, wherever you'd like. Sure.
Well behaved. You don't know her like I do. Actually, before I go on, I would like to introduce my beautiful and supportive wife, Kimberly. You just heard my son Brian Kerr, his wife Jessica, and the beautiful little granddaughter Lillian. On you, yeah. Hi, sweetie. I have family on YouTube tonight watching this, so I can say hello to my son Seth, that is in Arcata, my grandson Christian, who's in Burbank. I just said that he just got hired as a graphic artist for Disney, so we're very excited. My daughter Amanda, who is in Idaho with her husband Brent and 1.5-year-old Victoria, and due again here in September with a boy, so we're excited. My brother Matt in Idaho also, who just retired in education. He was former Dean of Fine Arts at Brigham Young. And I want to recognize my hero, the one with the phone sweeping me way over there, Dr. Dana Eaton. He and also prior Superintendent Doug Adams. I mean, these people have meant a lot to my life. And remembering Superintendent Bill Bristow, as my son said. I also want to thank the local R board, Scott, Steve, Twee, Stephanie, and the past board and cabinet members. And I must add this lady right here too, who's very special, Nicole Clevin. I'm so very humbled and proud and overwhelmed. This is such an honor, but it's truly, in my mind, a team recognition, many teams. The opportunities in this district, all of you in this community have given me is truly a blessing. And you gave me a mic, so I'm going to take a minute. I grew up in Byron out on Marsh Creek Road and came to Edna Hill with my entire 8th grade class of all the 14 students and heard this huge Edna Hill band in the multi-use room. I wanted to be in that band. Little did I realize in just a few years I would be the band teacher on that same stage. I taught part-time before I came here in Spanish Fork, Utah, before Brentwood. The principal said, if you can get kids to engage in school, you'll have a positive, proud, and most successful school. He believed that for many, you get them to positively engage through performing arts and sports. These programs, he said, will foster learning. These 3 superintendents mentioned and also held that same report. I think it was 1975, I went with Superintendent Bill Bristow to look at the Diablo Valley College Theater. They were going to take it down, and he said, we can bring it back here piece by piece and put it back up, which we did. With this building, we can have the best music program in the state, he said. No more musicals in that multi-useless room. And I can remember him saying that. But on a real stage with sound and lighting. That Bristol Theater is now replaced with the new Edna Hill Theater. And the new theater at Bristol will add the 3rd performing arts theater in this district, one at each middle school. Bill was in tears hearing and seeing the finale of his favorite musical, The Music Man, as the band marched down from the stairway behind and down blaring 76 trombones. It was played again at his funeral as he was exiting. When I left teaching, I wanted to be on this board to carry the Brentwood traditions of creating a caring, positive, and sustainable working environment for children to excel. It has been the same team effort with those who preceded me, with those whom I've shared the years with these efforts, and hopefully in the direction of this district. Approximately 6 years ago, I went to Las Vegas to visit Opportunity Village, a wonderful program for special needs students. Opportunity Village is our nonprofit model, and Matt and Schwab and I think Christine is over there, who are the founders of that program, which is a great program. And there I saw the acronym PRIDE, Pride, which has become part of my goal belief for every student, and that is the people's rights for independence, dignity, and equality. I still feel as I did in that first Utah and Brentwood teaching opportunity that we educators dedicate our life to our people, every child, recognizing this right they have to reach their capabilities. We assist them towards independence, and they are provided an equal opportunity in every program and experience we offer. With our board president, with our board here, our administrating staff, outstanding teachers and students, this community, we can positively engage every student in education. Albert Einstein said, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. I want to thank everyone. I'm humbled again. I hope to see you all at the dedication and performances in that same site. Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut the cake, and we invite you to hang around for a piece. The cake is cut. I didn't turn around. I was very focused on the speakers. So please come up, grab a piece of cake, mingle for a very short time, because we're going to have a board meeting immediately following this. So we're going to have about 10 minutes to mingle, and then those of you are welcome to stay around for a budget presentation. We will be covering the second interim, and I think many of you would love it. Some of you former board members, we'd love some input into how the spreadsheets are. So thank you all for coming and celebrating this day. It's been so great. And we will let you know about the dedication. It's likely to be around October, okay? So we'll be looking for that, but we'll communicate with you. Thank you. The budget presentation will start in 5 minutes. The budget presentation will start in 5 minutes. Make sure you get a good seat. Okay, we're going to start up in just a minute or two. So either find a seat or say your last goodbyes. Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, usually Troy, my husband, is with him, but he's traveling for work today. So I'm like, I had to have. I'll ask him when he gets home.
I'm like, did I see him? I didn't think I did. This is an interesting one.
No budget for me. You sure? Yeah, I signed up for a process.
It's not. Yeah.
Entering Liberty. Like
Okay.
that first week.
We're just about ready to get started.
All right.
So awesome. We're going to be there on Saturday.
Okay, good.
Yeah. For sure.
I'm still here.
All right.
Thank you.
Good seeing you. Yeah.
Yeah, where is it?
Now it's
The left.
got a little chilly now again.
Okay. Looks like we're ready to continue our meeting. Congratulations again, Mr. Geddes.
Thank you. Thank you all, really. Really mean that.
Okay, we've come to item number 7, which is public comment, oral communication. At this time, the public is permitted to address the school board on items that are on the consent calendar, requests for future agenda items, or items that are not on the agenda. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person. While we encourage your comments, unfortunately, state law prevents us from discussing items that are not on our meeting agenda. Public comments can be made at this time or during the appropriate agenda item. We do take them very seriously, and if appropriate, staff will follow up. In addition to speaking in person, public comments can also be submitted via email and will be posted on our website. At this Go ahead, Scott.
I make a motion, we open public comment.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So far, I have one speaker card. Does anybody else have a card to turn in tonight? Okay, let's hear from Lisa Santiago Ortiz.
Good evening, Dr. Eaton and members of the school board. My name is Lisa Santiago Ortiz, and I'm the TK teacher of Loma Vista Elementary School. I'm here to ask questions and hopefully encourage you to ask questions tonight about the changes being considered for our current TK program. As you may or may not know, TK began 10 years ago in our district, the first year with 2 classes. The first one was taught at Loma Vista by me, and the second, Brentwood Elementary, by Liz Rios. We had to create everything. There was no curriculum for TK. The TK program has grown over 10 years and established a TK class at each site in our district, including our newest school, Mary Casey Black. The TK team constantly is adapting to the ever-changing needs of our students. We created a program that we're very proud of, and I would bet that the families we've served in past believe that TK was the best thing for their child. I can confidently say this because every year we have families whose children don't meet the enrollment criteria or asking for an exception to allow their child to participate. Not only these families are thankful for this, but the state too has learned that children who attend preschool or TK do better in school, social, emotionally, as well as academically. The state has voted to change the TK to include all 4-year-olds. To ensure that those families who could not afford preschool or their children didn't meet the criteria can have that opportunity too. The state understands that children will impact the schools and their very limited space. So they are adjusting the birth date a little bit each time over the next 4 years to allow school districts to make modifications and allow construction of schools to prepare for those new children. The dedicated TK teachers are concerned about the direction that the district is taking to prepare. I started by saying we had questions that the district members of the TK task force have unanswered since our very first meeting. We asked the members of the board to help seek this information. What sites currently have a room or more than one room? Why are we willing to compromise the opportunity for these young students without considering any available space? Do you really think that shortening the school day to cram 24 3 and 4-year-olds in a classroom and forfeiting our staggered start time is what the state considered an advantage for these children? Do you really think that having 48 children in a single classroom is of any social, emotional, or academic benefit? Would you put 24 additional 4th graders in a class of 30 just to avoid adding an additional building? We ask you to consider occupying any available space in our district, even if all the empty classrooms are at one site, to allow the teachers to continue their good work and give you time to add the necessary buildings over the next 4 years.
Thank you. Do we have any additional speakers?
I'll make a motion that we close public comment.
It's been moved and seconded that we close public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving on to item 8, our consent items. Would anybody like to discuss or pull any items 8.0 through 8.5? If not, I'd take a motion to approve the consent items.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve items 8.0 through 8.5. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 9, hearings and appeals. We have none. Item 10, report out of closed session. We have 2 items to report out of closed session. Regarding item number 3.2 on the closed session agenda, a majority of the board voted 5-0 to approve a compromise agreement in Office of Administration Hearings case number 202-202-0410 to resolve a due process hearing complaint filed by a parent of a former student who asserted special education claims against the district. The board approved a resolution of all claims and demands in exchange for specified funding for the student's private services and parents' attorney's fees incurred in this matter. Also in closed session, the governing board voted to reassign an administrator to a teaching position. The vote was 4-0 with one abstention. The ayes were Member Dow Jensen, Member Dudek, Member Geddes, and Member William Rogers, and I abstained. All right, moving on to item 10.0, or 10.1, expulsion of student number 12-2021-03.
So these require motions and seconds and votes.
Anybody would like to make a motion to approve 10.1?
I'll make a motion to approve 10.1, expulsion of student 12-2021-03.
Just a reminder with the microphones.
Oh my God.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 10.1. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Item 10.2.
I'll make a motion that we approve expulsion of student 12-2021-04.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve item number 10.2, expulsion of student number 12-2021-04. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Item 10.3.
I'll make a motion that we approve expulsion of student 02-22-05.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 10.3, the expulsion of student number 02-22-05. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Item 10.4.
I'll make a motion that we approve expulsion of student -03-2022-06.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 10.4, the expulsion of student number 03-2022-06. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Item 10.5.
I'll make a motion that we approve expulsion of student number 03-2022-07.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 10.5, expulsion of student 03-2022-07. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Next up, item 10.6, budget update. Robin.
Good evening, board. Just a couple of things to cover tonight. Just trying to keep in front of you at every meeting just with some of the information. So when we get to the interim reports and budget development, it's not a super long, tries not to be a long presentation. Really quickly, we still have no other additional information on COLA. We're still sort of projecting from what the governor stated in January at 5.33 for next year, which is a 2.85 increase over what he promised in June. Right now, the fiscal trends in the state look pretty good, but we need to wait till we see the statutory COLA come out, which will be here in a couple of weeks, and the May revise. We also know that, just a reminder, is we turn the page every year and cost expenditures increase on the natural, so to speak. And these are the things that we've talked about before, that every time we turn the page and roll the budget over into the following year, these costs go up automatically, and we have to build for those expenditures into the budget. When we look at those in relationship to COLA, the green bar on the left of each of these columns is the COLA increase for that year, and the bars on the right of each column represent the turning the page or increase or salary benefit costs that went along with that year. And you can see the far right, the COLA we've received over the last 5 years has not kept up with the expenditures that we looked at. But we also know we had quite a bit of one-time money that came in that's sort of offsetting that deficit spending. As we look at one of the biggest things that we have to monitor for next year is we're going to be ADA. And ADA is based on a percentage of our enrollment that come to school every year. But that also looks at, where we go this year when we roll into next year. And really, if you look at the difference between these two lines, the bar at the top is 8th grade. And the bar at the bottom is the kindergartens. And you can see that, we still project about the same number of kindergartners next year as we're getting this year. And you can see that the difference in that number is about 200 students. So we have to make that difference up over the summer and still gain additional kids to get to where our projections are for next year's budget. Now, that's not too far different from what we had before, but things can change in a heartbeat and in the housing market and what happens to our enrollment, but we're watching that closely. But it's one of those things that we do have to watch. Looking at that in a different way is this is just sort of the data. This is a snapshot from just a couple of weeks ago. You can see there's about 884 kindergartners, which is the 0-0 grade, and there's about 1,108 eighth graders. That's about 228 students that we need to look at. We do know that we're going to gain TK students for the additional 4 months, and that we're projecting about 100 kids. But that means we still have to gain 128 just to stay even. Then if we want to gain about the 50 to 75 kids we're projecting, we gain those kids as well. And again, that's by CBEDs or by the time that we actually do our formal ADA report at P2. So lots of things can happen, but we watch that very closely. And it's just a reminder to the board and staff that we monitor these things very closely, and we need to monitor and continue to monitor that and look at enrollment. But we know that this week, if you've seen the report, I think we gained 14 kids over last week. So the trend is still there, but we need to watch closely. We had our recent attendance look at really February 7th through March 4th, which is the reporting period that we just reported on relative to our numbers. And you can see in the yellow lines there, we're anywhere from 93 to 94%. The average for the district's about 94.2%. That's about 1% below or more where we normally are in a normal year. Again, we know COVID was going on. There's other things going on. So the number doesn't surprise us for the current. But if those numbers don't improve for next year going out, that'll affect us. And the 3-year average the governor's proposing is taking current year ADA. So that might affect the actual ADA that we report for this year. So we're watching that closely. And you can see the 8 months of reporting over there on the right. You can see sort of the trend. And I've just highlighted really that P7, the February, when we're down about 87%, that's when we hit the big Omicron surge that really affected us district-wide, which affected our attendance in that month. So we continue to watch that. And again, we'll have more information again in May. And again, that just comes back to looking at where we are. As right now, we're funded at about 80 kids based on last year's ADA, which was held to the prior year. Next year, we get to look at the averages. And right now, it's really the column on the right where we're about 139 kids down. That's what we put second interim projections are based on a projection of about 8,841 ADA next year. And you can see that's still lower than this year, but it's better than the other two scenarios that we have used in the past. So we also know that there's several other initiatives working through the legislature in terms of how to do this math. So we continue to watch that. And unfortunately for us, we may not know the final answer what to do until after the budget's adopted. We adopt our budget and the state makes a determination what they do. But we will have more information that may revise, and we'll continue to give you the information that we actually have in writing to the best of our ability. In closing, haven't heard this before, we're going to continue to watch enrollment and attendance, monitor our cost, time expenditures, and then also that's monitoring the one-time expenditures, and then monitoring the state economy and the legislative process as we get to the May revise. And that's my quick budget update.
All right. Thank you, Robin. Anybody have any questions for Robin? Nope. All right. Moving on. Item 10.7, update on enrollment projections and boundaries.
A little longer, and I'm asked Chris to come up and join us. And I know Dana will also be jumping in. This is a presentation, but it's also meant to be a conversation. If you have questions, please stop as we go through. And Nicole has some handouts that she's going to pass out as we go through this. So what we have tonight for you is really looking at, we know that there's some the Amber Lane apartments that are going in right across the street from Pioneer. And we know that has a potential of as they open and have people that rent the apartments, there could be students that are generated out of that apartment complex. So what Chris and I have for you tonight is sort of looking at what are some of the options that we have and what are some of the projections, and at least try to get as much information in front of you as an information item and take guidance from you on either steps that we take now or bringing back some recommendations at the May meeting. So in looking at that, if we look at Amber Lane, which is right across the street from Pioneer, on the books, they have 288 apartments. And that's broken down into, and I think this is important, 116 one-bedroom apartments, 148 two-bedroom apartments, and 24 three-bedroom apartments. What's important here is that Amber Lane, when they work with the city relative to Section 8 housing or affordable housing, they paid the city's fee to not have Section 8 or affordable housing in the apartment complex. So there's no affordable housing available in Amber Lane. And I will note, just for math purposes, because it'll make it's important at the next couple of slides, is if we just look at Amber Lane for 2 and 3 bedrooms, which are probably, if we're going to see kids coming out of those, are probably the 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. Again, that's a hypothetical assumption, which means it's kind of way out there, but it still is. There's 172 of those. Remember that number. There's no 4-bedroom apartments, and again, there's no affordable options. And at this point, as of today, they don't have any apartments listed for rent, so we don't know what the rental rate's going to be. When we look at Arbor Ridge, which is just directly north of Pioneer on Shady Willow, so there's a group of houses that were built by, now I can't remember, those 5-plex housing just up. There's Arbor Ridge, which has 178 apartments. Now, Arbor Ridge was built, and you can go back and look at in the city minutes, there are 36 affordable apartments available for use and lease in the Arbor Ridge apartments. And both Arbor Ridge and the city maintain that. I didn't get into who's doing what. I just know that there's 36 available. Again, the breakdown of those apartments, 24 one-bedroom, et cetera, you can see down there. And so there's 154 apartments that have 2 to 4 bedrooms. So if I go back, looking at Amber Lane, there's 172. So we're a little closer in terms of maybe the number of apartments that might have children. Now, we know 1 bedroom still may have children. I know that. Now, the other piece at Arbor Ridge is the 3 bedrooms run for $3,100. That's the going rate right now online. And the 4 bedrooms go for $3,300 a piece. And I mean, I know some of you are looking, wait, what's my mortgage payments less than that? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And those are at market rate. Those aren't the affordable. The other thing we looked at for Arbor Ridge, because we can pull the data, is in Arbor Ridge, there's 66 students that actually attend our Brentwood Union School District. 38 are elementary and 24 are middle school. Of those 66, 38 of them qualify for free and reduced lunch. So there's a hypothesis that we have that a good portion of those students are filling up and taking up those affordable housing units that are available in Arbor Ridge. Of note, which was not in your packet because we didn't get the information just recently doing this analysis, is of those 38 students, 32 are direct certified. What that means is those 38 students are below the level of poverty and are automatically qualified for free and reduced lunch because they also get food stamps, or what we call CalFresh now. And so that means the state knows them. They're on the state's social services books, and the state certifies those automatically. So that means they're definitely down, and they're below the poverty line before any assistance. And we also have there's a few more students in there that are not direct certified. In addition, of the 38, 14 actually attend Pioneer. Now, 14 out of those number, about 14 out of the number of kids that attend is much greater than the percentage of free and reduced lunch at Pioneer. I'll say that the percentage of students in Arbor Ridge that attend, the percentage of free and reduced lunch is much higher than the general population, which also leads me to believe that many of those kids are free and reduced lunch that actually live in Arbor Ridge. There's others, we sure. So when I look at that, just a breakdown, just so that, because you don't have enough data and analyze, and in case you're bored at night, this is just sort of the breakdown of where those kids that live in Arbor Ridge actually attend our school. So you can see there's 31 at Pioneer, and you can see there's a good portion at the middle schools and where they go to the other schools in the district. This is just a quick reminder that we reviewed just a couple of meetings ago. We looked at the attendance projections, and this is sort of the big slide that looks at the school of attendance where the kids actually reside or go attend school. This is just blown up just so you can see sort of where we are right now and where we're looking at the next couple of years. And you can see Pioneer down there has a capacity of at 905, and that's actually the enrollment that we had in 17-18. So the capacity we know is a little higher, but we went to the highest enrollment that we've ever had at Pioneer. And we know there's other options, that there's probably more space there, but we have to look at how the school is used and how they assign some of their classrooms that we look at. So we know there's more space there, but in 17-18, that's what the highest population was with their special ed students included. So if you look at the current year, we're about 892, and we're projecting about 913 and 893 and 22-23, and that includes some projections with the TK population coming in. So it's just another piece of information in terms of projections until the kids actually show up next year. This is the best data that we have until the kids see and we actually have a real count. This very quickly, and I'm going to let Chris explain the rest of the slides. You've seen this slide before, but I edited the graph so it makes a little more sense, or it tracks better. So the first column of students is the students of residence. So that if you look, we'll just look at Pioneer. Pioneer has 676 kids that actually attend Pioneer that live in the Pioneer attendance boundary. If you go all the way across, there's 172 that come from inter, and I'm going to stop talking and let Chris because he's prepared to talk about this slide.
So the 172 are intra-district transfers. That means they come from within our district, and you can see the numbers there from what schools they come from. And then there's inter-district transfers. That means they come from outside of our district, and that's 28 students. And then throughout that graph, you can see our various schools. So for Pioneer, we actually have more students that leave that school than come into that school. So it's a negative. So there's ability to grow there. Really, that's all I really need to say about the inters and intras. There'll more to come in the next slides.
If you look at the Pioneer column, not the row, but the column, that means the up and down one. That's the 180 kids that actually intra-district out. So either they requested an intra out, or they got, when they attended, there wasn't room and they got overflowed to another school. And there's lots of reasons for that. And so you can compare the 172 that come in and the 180 go out, and that doesn't count the 44 that are enters.
Robin, real quick, overall capacity at Pioneer, is there any room there at all at this point? Or
Yes, there is room. I mean, it means that the site's going to have to make some adjustments. Right now, we're looking at, for example, TK will be AM, PM. So even those kids are coming in, we're not adding a classroom to absorb those kids. And we know there's some other space availability. If you talk to Casey, that's, it's something we watch, but we know that this was based on what our maximum number of students were at the campus in 17-18. But we know that there's more space around that. We had to get a point, because it also looks at the number of primary classrooms you have and intermediate classrooms, because of whether it's 20-1 or whether it's 33, and it plays a capacity issue.
Thank you.
And then can you just share some of the examples of why they would transfer out if they live in the district? I'm curious.
So within the district for intras, oftentimes what we see is a family has moved and want to stay at the school that their children has been attending. So for instance, they live in the Loma Vista boundary. They've now moved to the Pioneer boundary, but they want to stay at Loma Vista. We often see that.
Okay.
And that is usually typically what we see for inters also. Inters coming in are usually because of daycare. And so they have to meet the criteria, or they're our own employees.
And as you know, once they sort of do an inter for whatever reason, they usually stay at the school and want to stay, even though we have kids going to Cray and they want to stay at Cray, sometimes because they have a sibling going to Adams.
And I do want to add, sometimes those are students that are displaced, and we still do an intra form and count them as an intra. So we've displaced them from another school, and now they're part of that school that we've displaced them to. And as Robin just said, we often call those parents on a wait list, offer them to go back, and in many cases they stay, probably 80% of the time.
So that gives you an idea of sort of the inter data, sort of what's going on. It gives you a picture of what's going on relative to some of the suggestions we have later. When we looking at boundaries, and you have a much larger version of this in front of you, so you can actually see it rather than what that looks like up there. But the orange line that is diagonal across the page is the Pioneer boundary versus the Marsh Creek boundary. And that's on the slide. I didn't have time to draw the line on all of yours. But the second page shows you the boundary, so you can sort of look at what goes on there. just from a standpoint of looking at what boards often do when consultants come in and work with boards looking at boundaries, is each of those numbers is called the geocode. And it's usually used really primarily in elections for all the precincts, et cetera. But it's also the same numbers that used for districts to break up their school areas into what we call geocodes. And so each kid in our system actually has a geocode assigned to them based on what their address is. And so each of those really talks about a geocode. So usually what happens in my experience and what the consultants have shared with me, and others can share other examples, is if boards actually make a decision to change boundaries, it's usually a geocode, and they do a contiguous geocode, or they look at a boundary or some other type of a division that's easy to do, but usually sometimes it breaks down to actually just doing a geocode. And when you do the detailed committee work on that, you're actually counting the number of kids in that geocode and how it affects what schools. When you actually get down to doing some of the back end analysis, trying to determine how will that move. But so this chart is just giving you an awareness of sort of how the kids are spread out, where sort of where they live, and the red dots are just a kid that are attending our schools, and which school of residence they actually reside in, not whether they attend there or not. So when we look at and sort of what we're bringing forward tonight as a board, and some of that background, which is probably not complete, but again, it's basically as much information as we have. There's really, from our standpoint as a staff, there's essentially, there's others, you can break them up, but there's 4 general options or considerations when we look at how do we address the potential enrollment impact of Amber Lane. The first one is just to leave it as is, and if Pioneer becomes impacted, when they enroll a kid, they come to Chris, and Chris talks about overflowing that to another school, which is what we have now, the process we have now for when a grade level and that happens. The second one is we would go, which I sort of hinted at as an idea, is we'd actually reassign or change boundaries for part of Pioneer, so that we would actually take the time and go through and look at some options on here on moving some of those sections of Pioneer to another school.
And Robin, just to interrupt for just a second, just as we are talking about for the 23-24 school year, we're not talking about for next school year. So,
okay, yeah. The third one would be assign Amber Lane to another school. So we could actually, we have the ability, if we choose by board action, that we would actually say Amber Lane no longer would attend Pioneer. They would actually be assigned to another school, and then it would be that school specifically. And the fourth option is really to look at some option with our current enters and interests and really prevent any new ones to come into that school, and they only students of residence would be able to attend the school. And there's some grandfathering issues because now you have siblings that are attending, and hey, the son, his brother's in the same house, but now he's got, so, and we have some of that now, but it's just all from my standpoint, my intent in working with Dana and Chris and sharing with you is just, there's some things we can consider, but based on the information above, we want to take a little time to walk through each of these. So, yes.
So, thank you for the list of considerations. Are they ranked? So are they just?
No, thank you. Good question. What we're going to do is take a little more time and walk into some of the pros and cons and some of the information about the 4, and we can talk about maybe where we think we should go at the end based on all the information we've talked about. And now you have as much information as we do.
Right, but let me just make sure I'm clear that the order in which they are listed on this slide, are they ranked based off of?
No, they're not
you.
prioritized. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for re-asking to clarify me listening right. So the first option is looking at leaving Amber Lane where they are, and I'm going to let Chris talk about this one.
Yeah, so at that point, we would do an overflow, and we often do that when we have a grade level that's full or a school that's full, and we displace those students to the nearest school that has room at their grade level, and we can do that. It actually gives us more options in many cases because we can go to more than one school in that scenario. Closer, yeah, I was getting feedback before, so this would affect student enrollment over time. That would as they attend other schools. And then as student services, we manage that along with our site secretaries and the Secretary of Student Services. And we look for where there is room in the district, and we monitor that weekly.
actually, any questions on that before we move on? So we would just be leaving, this is one of the ideas, we'd leave Amber Lane assigned to Pioneer and work it as an overflow option, which is basically the current status. Okay. Okay. Second one is just, as I explained briefly, is that we would just look at reassigning some boundaries for the 23-24 school year. Because we're too soon to do it now for the next year. And that would affect currently enrolled students. If you move those geocodes, and we'd come up with some grandfathering clauses and the types of things we talked about at the last meeting. But there could be some issues based on the criteria that we set up to some of the siblings. One kid goes to Pioneer, but then when their younger sibling attends school, they're gonna be assigned to another school. In that case, depending on the criteria that we would set up if we did that.
And we'd most likely use the same criteria that we use for intra-district transfers, which would be staff would get special consideration first. We would then look at siblings and special considerations such as program.
Well, you use the example, it's great. You do know that people have democracy, people upset, all with very valid and good reasons why they should be upset. And it's just.
Yeah, I think our own data that Robin shows you really bears that out, in that you see that when people go to another school, even when it's not their home school, they instantly become very attached and want to stay. And so having to leave a school is very difficult, and it's why we're talking about this early, right? And not waiting till the middle of next year.
Yeah.
My question on reassigning or changing the boundaries to adjust just for this apartment complex is, with us having another school coming online in the future, we're already going to have to be looking at readjusting boundaries and changing things. And so doing a short-term one for just one project and then having to redo the whole district again, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, just from that standpoint. So
I'll let you take this.
I'm sorry. This would only affect the students residing in Amber Lane apartments. Parents would, the issue with it is that you are right across the street from Pioneer Elementary School, right? And so, and that's upsetting. Having been a principal of a school where we were completely full and the neighborhood across the street could not go to our school, those are the angry parents Emil's referring to, right? Amber Lane apartments would be designed to a specific school site other than Pioneer would be another option. And we would look at which school has the most room based on what we know demographically as far as what students would be coming to us just from projections.
We think this is a terrible idea, but we put it up there just so you
I
can
would
see that
think
it was
that
an
would be-
option. They're literally right across the street from the school.
We don't like, there's not a lot of really good options. It's just getting in front of you with the information so that we're most informed as we can be. And the last one is really looking at, I'll let you handle this one.
Sure. We would deny any new inters. The exception to that, again, would be staff. And then we would take siblings under consideration. And the same would be true for any new intras. We would deny them going into Pioneer so that we can leave that space. Potentially, you could move current inters and intras. For the intra, that would be a change in policy because currently as a board policy, if we transfer a student to another school, that becomes their school up until the last grade of that school accommodates. And so that would be a change in policy if we did that.
That was my question, so you answered it.
Excellent.
And denying new inters and intras based on enrollment, it's essentially how we already do things.
It's what we do throughout July through December. Yep, absolutely.
And so when we look at this and looking at the considerations is, how many students will be generated? And right now, our hypothesis is probably equal to or less than what's coming out of Arbor Ridge, which is about 30 elementary kids. And we think it's be less than that. Again, that's a hypothesis, but I've shared and talked about with Chris, and I've also met and talked with this with Casey, Mr. McClure at Pioneer with the data, and he actually observed the same thing without me saying anything. Is like, well, if that's what sort of with the free reduced lunch count, how many we're really going to get? He sort of took a deep breath and said, okay, there's a lot more factors here, but we have to see. We also need to pay attention to the release time of the apartments of Amber Lane. Right now, it looks like they're moving fast, but they don't have anything listed for rent yet, looking online. And I'll just say that, in all of these, there's always grandfathering options relative to the board policy in terms of practices that we do. If we do anything, the current and versus long-term impacts would still be affected, and we have to pay attention to that.
I think that as we've been spending time with this, and I think to go back to a point that Steve made is, with a new school coming on, really this deserves a lot of attention. The boundaries that we have and planning for that new school, with the apartment complex coming in and Pioneer the size that it is, I do think it makes sense sooner than later to look at a boundary adjustment process where we're going through and looking at the whole picture, right? Looking at the school, even though it's going to open a few years out, of starting to get that work and that word out now so that people have that information. It is a tough process for a board to go through because people, like we said before, people typically love the school that they're in and don't want to move. While there's excitement to go to a new school, that can sometimes help. But like Emil said earlier, you'll hear many reasons and very valid ones why people want to stay at the school that they're in. It's not a process that you can do in a week or a month. It takes several months to go through and do a good job with it and have public input and so forth. And so we wanted to present this to you, and then we thought that we'd come back in May and give you any updates and maybe get some direction for you from you going forward as to what you think the best path might be, and see if there was any other information that we could get you.
For either of you, is there any planned residential housing around there that would also affect Pioneer? And the reason I ask that is an apartment, I'm not sure how much, you'd like to think they're relatively, not temporary, but they're not as long-term as a residential house would be. And that's why, to give that much consideration to perhaps shorter-term residents am I making sense?
There's like a lease term.
Yeah. Especially at $3,100 a month, I think they would try to exit stage left as quick as they could for that price.
So right now, there are properties and developments that are on the books in the city relative to going through the approval process. Some of them been on the books for 10 years, and some of them just showed up. That doesn't mean they're going to be built right away. They could be there for another 10 years. There's one sort of off of Sam Creek on the other side of the creek that's on the Pioneer side that's been on the books for about 7 or 8 years. No movement, no developer, et cetera. And the only other big one right now that would affect Pioneer is PA1. But there's outside of Amber Lane, there's no other housing development yet even approved for development. So we're at least, my guess is at least 2 years, if not 3 years away from any housing and any kid generated that would affect Pioneer, which will allow us to watch those things and look at some other stuff.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, I think what you're saying, Scott, is accurate. I think where it's different, and this is not the case here, is if there was low-income housing, then we tend to see our families stay in apartments, right? But in this particular case, no.
I think the last thing that I want to say, and it goes back to the capacity question, is that even though we could physically get more students on the Pioneer campus, we don't want to get too many more on. We think that school, our schools are built to flex and then to come back smaller. We've seen that with Cray as that school has come down in numbers, and we expect it'll continue to come down. And so, but having an elementary school that's much more than 900 makes it very challenging for the staff that's there, for the community and the neighborhood that's there, and just trying to, even though they get additional staffing in many areas, it's not something we want to keep going for a long time.
Sure. Okay. Thank you both very much. Any other questions?
We're always available to answer questions and go into this. If all of a sudden you get a crazy idea you went through, we'd be glad to walk through those things and talk about it.
Great. Thank you, Rob. All right, item 10.8, our COVID-19 update.
I have a very special update today where I do not have a PowerPoint for you for the COVID update. I put this in as a placeholder in case there were any new regulations or restrictions or news to report around COVID. What I will tell you is that the numbers have remained very flat over the last several weeks in our area in Contra Costa County. Our numbers have not been very high. That doesn't mean that it's not existing. I have seen several notices going out this week, so we're definitely having cases that are in our schools. But at this point, there's no new regulations or guidelines that have come out. And the health department hasn't given us any additional information at this point.
At Sutter Delta, as of last week, they only had one COVID patient in the hospital, so
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Yeah, there was just a field trip to. I saw an article about a field trip that a school in Marin, I think, took to DC and came back, and several of the students had COVID. I think what we're seeing and what's consistent with the report from the health department is while there's many positive cases, there's very few severe cases. Many of them are asymptomatic that are coming forward. So we'll just kind of have to see and watch as we go.
I think I've said it before, but especially now, I think this is one of the only illnesses at this stage that you actually have to test to find out that you're sick.
Yeah.
So let's hope it stays that way. So
We did get an update that from the state that the mandate that staff who have not provided proof for vaccination that they test weekly continues, and there's no projected end date at this point. So that's not something that we control. That's a state mandate. So.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Item 10.9, intervention update.
Before we go to that, do you know if they're still giving out free tests like they were in the mail?
I'm not sure if they're giving them out in the mail. We do have some at schools that are available for our students that are having. So
Stephanie, I don't know if you're aware of it, but depending on what pharmacy you go to, they're allowed to give you 8 tests per month under your insurance plan for free. So
that's a good tip. Thank you.
I just want to make sure it works. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to say so loudly. Apologize.
Jennifer Whitney is here today,
Hi,
and she is our coordinator of interventions, amongst other things, and she's going to go over a presentation for us.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here this evening to share a presentation of our 2-year expanded intervention program. We're fortunate to receive the one-time funding to expand our intervention program at our school sites. Oops, sorry, this is a new button for me. So here I just wanted to show you the timeline, and when the state allocated our funding was in last year in March, and we began planning in April. Hiring commenced for intervention teachers in May, and then it also continued really all the way through August, September for our classified intervention staff. The bulk of our training occurred for all of our intervention staff members for the beginning of the year. A lot of the programs and the resources that we were using or still using. And then intervention started in early September. Trainings, support, and monitoring still continues. I just want you to understand as well that, as you can imagine, intervention services have been impacted, just like all of our school sites have with COVID. And that's been the case for both our students and staff members. And our staff has been supporting school sites with subbing. We think it equals up to approximately 40 days. So why intervention? So our target really for this intervention program is unfinished learning or gap filling due to distance learning. All sites had existing programs with a smaller scale prior to the school closures and distance learning. Some of the sites use site funds for additional staff, and the prior intervention courses at the middle school were coursified courses. This program is funded by one-time monies from state and federal COVID funds, and the funding ends in June of 2023. Our 2-year expanded intervention program is aligned to our existing goals and our vision and mission that I have up here. So our vision is to create an intervention system that is fluid, flexible, and sensitive to the needs of each child in each school. We exist to ensure our students develop the essential skills necessary to reach their maximum learning potential. And our goal is to always ensure that our students develop those essential skills necessary to reach their maximum potential, with a focus on filling gaps and remediation. So each school site was allotted one certificated intervention teacher and the equivalent to one full-time aide. So you can see we have 11 intervention teachers and 22 full-time equivalent aides. The total count of 46 staff includes aides who work in different capacities at the school site, but all support intervention services. In addition to working with students, our teachers and staff members work with grade level teams and our classified teachers to identify and group students by need. They follow the cycle of instruction, progress monitoring, and data analysis. Students progress through intervention groups as well as exit intervention programs in the areas of reading and math. Here's a list of some of the elementary programs that we expanded this year and that we provided a great deal of training. The areas of focus for elementary was foundational reading skills such as gap filling within phonics, fluency, and reading comprehension. You can see that we're continuing to use our BUSD instructional routines and Sunday system, which is a more intensive structured literacy program to really focus on our foundational reading skills. We are using reciprocal teaching strategies for fluency and comprehension. For math, our emphasis is building really conceptual understanding with number sense and building fact fluency. So our intervention staff members have been spending many hours receiving professional training with all of the programs we are implementing. The math programs include Math Fact Fluency Kits by Graham Fletcher and Tracy Johnson-Zager, supplemental materials from Math in the Fast Lane and IXL Math. Our teachers also spend time not only training themselves and supporting their staff, but really also helping their staff implementing the programs to fidelity. So implementing those programs has been the bulk of our time since the training pieces that we ended in October. Middle school programs. And so our middle school, there are existing courses in place at each middle school that address this foundational reading skills. So the primary focus for the reading course is reading comprehension. We know that reciprocal teaching strategy continues to be effective in supporting older students who struggle with critical reading skills and comprehension. Reciprocal teaching emphasizes the 4 reading strategies of predicting, questioning, clarifying, and summarizing. Our math courses utilize or really address the learning gaps students have with foundational mathematical concepts with basic order and operations, multiplication and division, fact fluency. This course is paced to include building key concepts in real-world applications, small group rotations, and the use of math games to maintain student engagement. They also use the math fluency kits and also supplemental resources by Open Up Resources and IXL Math. So far we've intervened with more than 1,100 students, and this number continues to increase as we move throughout the school year. Students continue to enter and exit classes quarterly or within intervention cycles. We use many programs to collect data. We're collecting using district assessments, including FAST universal screening data and BUSD foundational skills assessments. We also use progress monitoring tools in FastBridge, and we recently started using EduClimber and IXL. The data collected here helps us with student identification and also progress monitoring. We strive to match the type of progress monitoring measure that best aligns with the intervention strategy. I want to just draw your attention to the upper left-hand corner of this slide to begin with, and that's namely where it says the hinge point average effect size of 0.4. And this is from Hattie's work on calculating effect size. And I want us to look at that blue area that's labeled zones of desired effects, because this is the range for closing learning gaps. And so now when we look at the chart, we want to see effect size of 0.4 or higher. The mid-year effect size for K-5 was collected using FastBridge assessment composite scores and progress monitoring scores from 2 different assessment windows. The all category represents the average effect size calculated for all students district-wide in each grade level. Intervention represents the average effect size calculated for students who receive intervention services within each grade level. I want to clarify that for the grade 1 all, you'll see an A there. And that's because we could not calculate that effect size during this time, since first grade graders are administered 2 different assessments at the 2 different windows, at the beginning of the year and at the mid-year window. We will be able to collect or calculate the effect size at the end of the year, since we administer the same assessment that we did at the mid-year and again at the end of year.
So just to clarify, the K on the intervention, they're off the charts. Am I reading the charts right?
1.9 would be the average effect size for kinder,
But
for intervention groups.
the graph only goes up to 1.2?
Well, it's just a calculating guide, so that's just the range. So what we really want to say is anything around in a range of 0.4 or higher is going to be in the zones of our proximity that we want, the desired zones we want kids to be. It's not uncommon, and we've been collecting effect size over some years, that you will see a higher effect size trend for your kinder first and second. And that often is true because the skills are very discrete. And so we see kids who really, luckily, right, that they increase at great amounts. But the tools we're also using for progress monitoring matches the instruction, which are discrete skills. So that's why you would see that. And it's not uncommon for us to see that range get lower as we're just effect size on reading comprehension, which is more of a complex, it's not even really a skill so much, but reading, right, is a little harder.
It's probably late in the night, and I'm not understanding what this scale of effect size correlates to. What can you?
So John Hattie is a researcher who did a lot of meta-analysis with looking at different research to see what was really effective in helping kids learn. And he didn't just look at what happens in the classroom, but he also went even beyond that. He looked at mobility rates and retention rates, and he looked at different research in different areas. And then he compiled effect size. And what he kind of said is, if everything starts at 0 and you measure it to that baseline of 0, you're always going to see a positive effect size. And his research really, I think, has been a grounding force for the last few years, is saying we need to go higher than that. Like a typical student in a typical entire year of school is going to gain about 0.4 growth in their learning. And so if we're wanting to close achievement gaps, if we want to really look at programs and look at strategies that are more effective than others, then we should be looking at them in the range of 0.4 or higher. And that's why he has that gauge of zones of desired effects. There are some things that are just, you can gain a higher effect size. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything that is on the lower side is bad, but you just have to kind of really look at what's being measured. And so a lot of times he'll do programs or he'll do strategies. Sometimes he's even looking at, kind of attendance and participation, student engagement, the success criteria, collaborative conversations. And so there's different strategies that he has compiled over time. So we use this as a way of evaluating our interventions program. And we like to do it at the mid-year point as well, because then we have more time to make adjustments if needed, and as well as collect it at the end of the year.
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you. I think I missed my slide. There it is. I just wanted to make sure I gave you the slide on our photos. And so these are many of our classrooms with our students, both in middle school and elementary school, photos of kids in math groups, as well as reading comprehension and foundational work. So in the beginning, so this is our middle school. So in the beginning of our quarter 2 and 3, we explored different pathways for measuring student progress in middle school math. We started by using student surveys and student conferences, as well as testing out different progress monitoring tools. In FastBridge, we explored iGloss and IXL. Based on the qualitative data we've collected, most of our students are improving overall understanding of their basic math concepts and also improve their confidence. And I think that that's really important as well, that students are really improving their confidence to work through more challenging math assigned that's coming from their core class. They're able to persevere a little bit more, use the strategies that they're using and the gap filling that they're finding to build their confidence. We included a few student and teacher testimonials. Beginning in quarter 4, all of our 3 middle schools will be using IXL data to monitor student progress in math. We will continue to collect qualitative data through surveys and student conferences. Those will be conducted as they are now in class. And we will expand our use of universal screening for reading through 8th grade starting in the next school year. So next steps. We want to continue to collect data, improving on our collection systems at the middle school level, and to include more aggregated data there. We're also going to continue with expanding EduClimber. I know you're aware of the rough start we kind of had with EduClimber, and we're moving in the direction. They've been very supportive and helpful in giving us an opportunity to utilize the program on a small scale as they kind of go in and work out the things that they were having trouble with. We'll continue with ongoing training and adjustments to any schedules with our staff, administrators and staff at the school sites, and plan to have an early start in intervention in August. I'm in the process now of conducting mid-year program reflection meetings with our intervention teachers, and that's also going to be guiding our work in the future. And I'll be sharing that information with the sites as well. Any questions for me?
I have a couple questions. Thank you for the presentation. Do you have a breakdown that you can share with the schools and how many students or percentage of students were identified that needed the intervention, breakdown by school?
I don't have that for you right now, but a breakdown of a percentage of the number of students at the school site that have been identified for intervention?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be helpful to get a sense of what schools have been identified with the, a high percentage of students who need the intervention. I would like to understand a little bit more about that. And I understand you don't have that right now, but it would be something that would help me. So that's something. And then in terms of middle school and progress, I'm wondering, are you guys leveraging the grades to determine, and then about high school readiness?
We have support classes and other existing intervention classes that are aligned more to the core curriculum to support students with like Common Core aligned math. As far as, and tell me the first part of your question again, sorry, Stephanie.
The students that are involved or participating in the intervention programs, how are their grades? right? Have they gone from a D to a B?
So are they seeing increases in their actual math grades?
Correct.
Okay, that could be something I will also look at and investigate more.
Yeah, and then, how do these interventions translate into high school readiness? So if we have an 8th grader going through this intervention program, how do we know they're ready for high school?
Mhm.
Those are the
Okay.
things that come to mind with your presentation.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item 10.10, a technology update.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Board. While Robert comes up, it's just my distinct pleasure to welcome Robert to the table to present and do an update on technology. He must be getting ready back there. But it's just a pleasure to have Robert here, and it's important to bring the departments in front of you. Jennifer's an example of coming forward to intervention and just give you an update of what's going on so you get a feel and a flavor for what's going on, and just also recognize Robert again for his ACTS Award for Technology Administrator of the Year. And I'm going to turn it over to him.
Tremendous thank you for that. Good evening, Board. I'm here to present the technology update for April 2022. And let's go at it. Here is a brief reintroduction of our staff. There's some new names here. Eric Valley, Lisa, Decruf Wooten, and Maritari Fernandez. And then the rest of us have been here for some time since my last presentation back in 2019. And I felt it was appropriate to reiterate our commitment to the district and the stakeholders of the district. So I'll read that now. The technology department is committed to identifying and implementing effective technology solutions to facilitate teaching and learning, administrative tasks, network integrity, and stakeholder communication. And the way I wanted to go about this tonight is I felt it would be more beneficial was to go through, provide an overview of what we support, what hardware, what software, infrastructure, curricular integrations. I've broken this list down in categories, staff and classroom devices, data and infrastructure, and curricular integration. And so I'll start with a list. Staff and laptop devices and desktops, those are the staff computers. Projectors and interactive whiteboards. Student devices, primarily Chromebooks. Not all Chromebooks, some iPads, but primarily Chromebooks. Chrome carts and Chrome charging stations. Telephones, mobile access points, web cameras, document cameras. Wireless clocks, video cameras, printers, security cameras, front row campus bell and announcement systems. And within that infrastructure, we have the Juno speaker towers, the lobby admin consoles and secretary stations, associated campus speakers and amplifiers, and of course, the audio systems in the boardroom. Moving on to network and data center, we oversee all data and telecom network connectivity throughout the district, firewall and firewall provisioning, web filtering, network switches and routers, wireless controllers, wireless access points that connect to those wireless controllers, user account creation and associated network resource access for all end users, which really means anytime there's a new employee, we enroll them in Active Directory, provide them with an account, and also Google, and then load them into the student information system as appropriate based on their title. Maintenance and support of file servers, printer servers, application servers, and domain controllers, network storage, maintenance and application support for all district platforms, including Google, Microsoft email, Office applications. And then for some reason, this slide has tiny font. We move on to the student information system.
There's a help desk available for you with those PowerPoints.
Yeah, I'm going to call it tech. Student information system and CalPAD state reporting. And then the curricular integration. So all of the learning management systems and content providers for curriculum, we oversee the integration into the student information system and make sure that those are accessible to the students So how many is the question now? Device counts. These are current device counts, and we're going to start with Chromebooks. This is always a moving target because we have devices coming back from sites for repair, but this is what is in the hands of students at any given point in time based on the 1-to-1 and 2-to-1 models, which I'll talk about in a little while. 7,717 Chromebooks, 360 additional for intervention, 697 staff laptops, desktops, and hybrid tablets, 859 monitors, 280 of the Chromeboxes. A Chromebox is a little form-factored Chromebook that allows students to kind of interact with the device like it is a PC. It has a keyboard and a mouse and monitor. Computer labs, 70 more towers there. Chromebook labs, 105 more of those in the Chromebook labs. We have 677 phones, 526 of the Juno towers as part of the Bell system, 524 Epsons, 551 printers, 553 clocks, 35 CM800. CM800 is a small box that basically translates digital signals into analog so that we can utilize the current infrastructure at the campus, the audio for common areas. And then 44 of the CM3000s. Those are bigger boxes that allow principals and secretaries and admin staff to make announcements throughout the campus. And then we have 13, I know that's blocking the little pop-up there, 13 of the conductor consoles, and those are kiosks at each site, which enable staff to go up and manage the Bell system, to talk independently to classrooms and make campus-wide announcements. And then we have the infrastructure side, which 75 servers, and that is actually, it's comprised of both virtual and physical servers, mostly physical out at the sites. So where you see the number 2, those are generally physical. And then the DO, that's primarily virtual. Access points, the little boxes up here in the ceiling that provide access to us, those are 550 of those. And then we have, those are surveillance cameras, 211. And finally, switches and routers, 266. We did not count mice and keyboards and webcams because they are peripherals and there is many. So yeah, there's tons of them. And they're really, to be fair, troubleshooting those is generally one variable or less. So it's a swap out most times. I counted 13,847 devices. So that's kind of where we are. Let's move on and talk about, so Chromebooks. I wanted to kind of highlight what we did during COVID, and this slide kind of tells a story about how the district pooled resources and really rose to the occasion during a hard time, and we got these devices to kids as a district. And in order to, ensure the continuity of teaching and learning through a very dismal time. When I came to you the last time, I think back in 2019, we had just purchased 500 and we had not rolled those out yet. May 2020, we purchased 3,000 more. 2021 of March, we did 2 purchases for 3,000 total. It was 1,000 and 2,000 more. And then about 3 weeks ago, we took advantage of some Emergency Connect Fund funding, and we're able to secure 2,655 more, which are in transit. From what I understand, they're arriving soon. These are big numbers, but really what I want to draw attention to is it's an enormous effort to unpack this and really unload it and stage these. And we had so much support from everyone in this district. I mean, people went out in the warehouse, and Dana was out there, rolled up his sleeves and got out there. Robin, Jennifer Whitney, lab aides, librarians, the list goes on, and I don't want to leave people out, but it was just a tremendous group effort, and we are so grateful. And I feel it's really a testament to how special this district is. So thank you to everyone for that.
Dana, how much of that purchases were used by B funds, if any?
Scott, can you go back a slide, Robert?
Yes.
So the Measure B funds purchased the the good portion of the 3,000 in May of 2020. That was the Measure B funds at that time. We'd have to come back to you for authorization to do any more, and you'd be aware of that if we brought that back.
Thank you.
And the last one, the 2655, we have to pay a recycling fee and a licensing fee, which is for us about $60,000, but the rest of it is covered out of E-rate.
Wow, very nice.
And so we look at all these devices and, I figured this would be useful to kind of explain how they manifest inside of a classroom. How do we deliver instruction through these devices? And it's something I don't think we've covered before. So I created this diagram, and if you can picture a campus, any one of our campuses, and a fiber optic line coming in from the street, from the provider into what's called the MDF or MPO, it used to be called main point of entry or main distribution frame. Fiber optic signals branched out throughout the campus to each building, and they end up and they terminate in a box like the one in the upper left corner. From there, the light signals are translated into electrical signals that can travel over the copper wiring and the backbones, which run to both the wireless infrastructure in the classroom and then ports in the wall. What is hardwired in a classroom? When you walk into a classroom, you'll find the teacher device, usually a laptop on a docking station, is hardwired. The phone is hardwired, a printer, usually a printer not pictured here, hardwired, and the front row bell speaker, hardwired. What is writing on the wireless? Generally student devices. So you'll find Chromebooks and some iPads, and the Epson projector and associated whiteboard. Okay, so what have we been up to for the last year or two? Some of the accomplishments of the technology department: successfully provisioned, distributed, and supported devices, peripherals, cameras, and infrastructure to support distance learning. We obtained some hotspots discounted through a program early on in COVID, and we're able to get those to families here at the district office who did not have a good connection at home. Worked daily in cross-functional teams, and it was a group effort, CNI and lab aides, in order to help kids who were at home struggling. Supported a successful transition into hybrid. And then we implemented a new web filter. So a lot of what we talked about is really the last year and a half, I'd say 2 years, a lot of endpoint focus. So a lot of devices and making sure that folks had equipment, but not as much infrastructure. We did focus on the web filter. The circumstances made us really harshly scrutinize what we had in place. And although it was a solid solution and reputable, we wanted something geared more towards a K-12 environment. And so we found LineWise and went over there. And it's amazing. We talked to a lot of folks who are K-12, ex-K-12 employees who went over there just to kind of take this product off the ground. And it's a fantastic web filtering solution. So we're grateful for that. And then lately, what have we been up to? We successfully implemented the Chromebooks to meet the district-wide goal of a 1-to-1 student device ratio in grades 3 through 8 and 2-to-1, 2 students per 1 device in grades TK to 2 by the start of the 21-22 school year. So we had all these devices after, we came back from hybrid, and we all, the district got together and said, hey, let's make our hopes of having a 1-to-1 a reality now that we have the devices. And so we pushed really hard and got that done. We were able to reappropriate a lot of the Chrome carts from the junior high schools where they have a take-home model to the elementary schools. And then after we were done, we realized, hey, you know what? We still have quite a surplus. Let's do grade 2 as well. And so we went back and we pushed really hard over winter break and got grade 2 done. And now they are 1-to-1 as well. So, and then, 1 through TK is going to be 2 kids per 1 device. We reinstated the help desk phone line for urgent issues. So after we got through this, we said to ourselves, how can we better support the district? We have School Dude. We've had that for a long time. That's generally the way that help is, that urgencies come through and we funnel our tickets. but we decided there's certain things that are showstoppers with regard to starting a day for a teacher. And we kind of brainstormed and came up with a list of what those were. And we also implemented a radius server for wireless, but let's take a look at the help desk criteria. So site-wide internet interruptions we felt were definitely worth a phone call to the help desk. Phone interruptions, campus-wide issues with the front row bell systems, classroom outages, and a classroom outage could basically be categorized as a teacher computer that failed or a teacher who was not able to get on their device to start the lessons of the day. Student information system outages, so outages with our Q system, soon to be Aries. Curriculum outages, that would be these learning management systems, ClassLink, things like that. Issues with 911 email alert groups, and finally, students accessing materials that should be blocked. So if somebody sees something they're not supposed to, we want a phone call so we can get ahead of it. The help desk hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4. We have our fabulous Technology Support Secretary, Mary Terry Fernandez, on that line. So that's in place. And here's kind of a picture of the in-class device, the storage devices that you'll see out at the elementary schools. There's the classic Chrome card. And then on the other side, the left, is the Chrome charge station. That holds 16 devices. It has a nice lock on the front. They fit on the countertop in the classroom. So what are we going to be doing? What are we doing now? And what are we going to be doing in the future? This is a project list of what we're working on now. These are the big items. The first one is probably as big as they come in K through 12 technology. It is the migration to the new student information system from Q to Aries. And it's a multi-departmental effort, but we are a centerpiece in this. And we feel good about what we've seen from Aries so far. They have fantastic project management software. They've laid out a pretty comprehensive migration plan for us. So right now, as of this week, we're meeting twice a week with them. We're eager to go forward, and we're looking forward to it. So the next one is, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of this has been about end user devices and student devices. It's kind of time for us now to turn our attention back inwards towards infrastructure. And so complete upgrade overhaul of the data center, that has to be done. It's just, we're at that point. As everyone knows, the technology has an expiration date, and yeah, so it's time to take that one on, and we're working on that now. Implementing Laserfish, document management system. What is a Laserfish? Laserfish is a workflow management system that automates processes, or at least makes them a lot easier, especially interdepartmental tasks and things like that. So it'll be good for streamlining processes in the office. Reconfiguring our wireless infrastructure with our radius server. So we built the radius server, now we need to connect everything to it and redo the SSIDs. And then completion of the circuit upgrades for elementary schools to 3 gig. We've been working on this with Comcast for a while. We have 2 elementary schools left. This was the plan to upgrade the elementary schools from 1 gig to 3 gig backbones. And we have 2 left, and then we can do our hard cutovers. So we're close. At least that's the last update I had from them. That was yesterday. And then we'll be doing the cutovers here on site, on the sites. Processing new student Chromebooks, as I mentioned, 2,655 on their way. And then finally, continuation with the staff device refresh. And there's been a lot of focus this whole time. I know I focused really a lot on the student devices. We've not taken our eye off the ball with regard to staff devices. During COVID, we purchased a significant amount of staff devices and rolled them out. I think the last campus we did the upgrade on was Brentwood. We're on a FIFO, so first in, first out. So whoever was after Brentwood goes next, and we have those devices we'll be staging and going as time allows. And before I go to questions, I have to send a big shout out to the tech team. I mean, the focus and communication and dedication is really what makes this engine go. And they've been fantastic. And we, just the district in general, is so supportive of us. The leadership is incredible. And we realize it's a very special district, and we feel privileged to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I don't have a question, but I'd just like to commend you and your department for the
Yeah.
fantastic work you do. Maintaining 14,000 devices is beyond impressive. I have a hard time keeping my phone and laptop charged at the same time. So to deal with that volume of stuff and keep it all running is very, very impressive. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, along that same note, you're being a little modest, but you and your crew are phenomenal. Back in 1819, probably the number one complaint that I used to receive from staff and everybody was the Chromebooks were basically paperweights. You know, they were worthless. And where we've come because of you is just astronomical. I mean, it's just leaps and bounds for where we were when I first came on. How about theft and damage? A lot of that?
So that's a fantastic question. And I'm going to take the number that I gave you of what we've purchased. We purchased 6,500. We crunched the numbers and there is turnaround. So damage, great question. It's a variety of screen breakage, which we can replace. We've come up with a model for replacement for screen damages. Generally, we order screens and put them in. It takes time, obviously. But we calculated off that 6,500 about 8.4%. I rounded up from 8.3 actually it was a lower, it could have been closer to 8.3. Roughly around 400 and some odd devices out of that came back. Now, out of those that come back, we can turn around about 50 to 60%. They're not damaged beyond repair. And then the other ones are in a holding tank until we get more screens. You have to buy the screens and then do the hardware repairs. If it's a software repair, a lot of the times, it's what's called a power wash. That's Google's fancy term for a factory reset. It's literally a few keystrokes and then it wipes out all the local memory. And there's not much on a Chromebook, but there's enough to where when you load enough profiles on there, it'll slow it down or it becomes unusable for a while until we do that and then we send it back. We've been working with the librarians a lot to distribute devices because obviously, I mean, you know, it would be very hard to go to each classroom and do that, but they collect them there. We have them sent back through the warehouse team, and then we go through those devices and we assess the damage. We have some with missing keys. That's one that we're having a hard time, believe it or not, trying to figure out a way to repair it. I mean, you get to the point where you have to do the whole keyboard. You got to really dig in there and take it apart. But the screens we found are repairable, and then the power washing is. But 8.4% is what I've seen in terms of what comes back and is in holding right now.
How about theft?
Theft, we do have some of that. And what we did to handle that was we sent out a request. I mean, and it's hard to say. I mean, we've had folks leave and not return it, forget to return it, as we say, leave the district and go far away. And when that happens, the librarians let us know and we deactivate the device so it turns into a brick. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And I just want to say thank you. When I did some site visits and being able to see the students using the technology and teachers using the technology, it was really engaging, and hats off to you and your team.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say a couple of things. Number one, and I said this at the awards dinner, I've worked with Robert for almost 3 years. He started just 3 months before the pandemic, 4 months before the pandemic hit. So he was just about to hit the ground running with lots of stuff that he had planned, and then life changed. Through all of this, I don't think from him or his staff, but especially from him, I've heard one complaint or one whine. It's always been positive, can do, get us solved. And that's just unheard of in anywhere from anybody. And it's true for most of his team as well. You call them, they're out there, they're working hard. And as I've talked to staff, I walk around, they tell me the same thing. Robert was in my room and it was like I was the only person he ever talked to that day. So they take their job importantly. And again, this is sort of the tip of the iceberg of everything they do, which is what's more impressive to me as I listen to this is all the other things that go on and what they drop and what they do. And they drop and work for everyone. So it's not just anybody. Lastly, and he sort of said it, which is sort of the underlying thing that's really one of the powerful things Robert's done is he has an ongoing communication that I've made the mistake of trying to micromanage and have quickly been sent out of the room because we have ideas, but they've already got to figure it out. He works with the library techs and the library technicians across the district, as well as there's sort of a computer tech at each site. So there's really 22 people plus the C&I staff that meet on a regular basis. And they're usually about 3 steps ahead of where we are, because Dana and I, well, we're thinking about something. Oh yeah, we've already got the plan. We're not that solved. And so we sort of take the step back and say, hey, things are going good. And so that's a kudos to Robert and the work he's done, and the work he's done with coordinating with other departments and communicating. So thank you, Robert.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Robert?
No, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item 10.11.
So as is typical, I take up the rear here at a board meeting. And so you have 1011 is the districts. So we recently completed the process for bargaining the current school year collective bargaining agreement with BTA. So this is the beginning of the process to start our bargaining for the next year. And it is our goal, joint goal as the district and the BTA team to try to be more proactive in our negotiations and have things wrapped up, if at all possible, in the current year for the subsequent year, rather than in the current year for the current year, or in the past year for the, in the current year for the past year. So the first one of these is our sunshine from the district to the Teachers Association. And each of these is an action item. We are at a successor agreement. So at this time, that means technically every article in the contract could be open for negotiations. However, we are actively communicating to determine the specific articles that will be discussed, and we'll communicate that out as we determine what they are.
Okay, thank you.
I make a motion that we approve 2022-23 collective bargaining sunshine, which is on item 10.1.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 10.11. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Item 10.12.
Make another motion that we approve the 2022-23 collective bargaining sunshine under 10.12.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. And finally, item 10.13, first reading of board policy, board bylaw administrative regulation exhibit with a whole bunch of other numbers.
Yeah, those are there with the summary of the changes, and it's just an information item, but they'll come back at the next meeting.
Okay.
Happy to
I'll
thank
just
you.
say I had a chance to look at the changes and the additions, and I'm pleased with the direction of the policies. So thank you.
Sure. That's Nicole Cleven's been doing that work, so
Thank you,
been heading
Nicole.
that.
Okay, item 11, board member comment or any future agenda items.
I think we better do the superintendent evaluation. Maybe we have a schedule for that, or shall we plug that
We'll
in
continue to
now?
put it on the closed session agenda, and
Okay,
we'll talk
perfect.
about, we'll continue to talk through.
Then we'll have it on the agenda for next week. All right.
You guys will have plenty of time for that.
Okay.
And I'm okay with a pass fail this year, if you want to simplify it. Yeah.
Okay, our next board meeting will be held on May 11th, 2022 at 6 p.m. and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all again.
Oh, give me a hug.
Lisa.